as the life had changed for the pastoralistic nomadic tribes in India during the British Raj, similar was the condition in Africa of the pastoralistic nomadic tribes during the colonial period. Now, there were various changes which affected the life of these people, and those changes were that the colonial government imposed restrictions on the mobility of these tribes, and they had been moving since ages in search of pasture. That was their life, that was their style of living, that was how they had been living since ages. Now, the pastoralist groups were forced to live in special reserves, which means that they had been actually bound to stay at a place and there was no movement. No movement meant that there is scarcity of grazing pasture area. They were not even allowed to enter the market area, so no trading activity could be done by them. So, all their economic activities were slowly and gradually taken away from them, because they were not allowed to move, no pasture, they were not allowed to move in the market area, no trading activity, which means that there is a great hit on the economic activities of the pastoralistic nomadic tribes. Well, the Britishers did not want to keep any contact with these pastoralistic nomadic tribes because they considered them savage and dangerous, as they had considered them criminals in India and they had imposed criminal act in India. So, similar was their viewpoint, their thought process in Africa too. But of course, their help was required at certain places, like for boring mines and building roads. Their help was certainly required, or their labor services were definitely required by the Britishers. So, it was, as I said, great economic dent for them and also a great loss to them as far as the social stigma that they carried of being savage and dangerous. Now, when the pasture dried, what happened to the pastoralistic nomadic tribe during this period? You see, in the earlier time, whenever the pasture used to dry, they used to move to the next forage area. But now their movement was restricted, which meant a lot of cattle died due to the starvation and diseases. And when the grazing land shrank, it meant that it became a drought area, and there was decline in the animals, which meant by every quarter they have been suffering, whether it is becoming a drought area or the animals are becoming less, or they cannot move from one pasture to another. Their lives seemed bounded and their economic activities restricted, social stigma they carried, which means the life had become a hell for the pastoralistic nomadic tribes in Africa. I talk about the concluding chapter in the next clipping.